shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and the gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out all mine iniquity.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We almost had Line by Bible Studies. Okay, we're continuing in Proverbs chapter 23. I was just going to mention on the other channel, reading the King James. I don't know, maybe I should just bring that all and dump it on this channel. I was thinking about it, I'm like, maybe a new channel, but I kind of like the idea of having a separate channel, so I don't know. Also, it'll make it easier on that channel to just find what you're looking for, so I don't know. Maybe I'll park the playlists on this channel, though, so people can easily access them. That sounds like a good idea. Let me take care of that. Anyways, let's begin reading. Chapter 23. We're going to start at verse 1, actually, because we didn't even get into this. When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. Labor not to be rich. Cease from thine own wisdom. Wilt thou set thine eyes upon that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings, and they fly away as an eagle toward heaven. Eat thou not the bread of him that hath an evil eye, neither desire thou his dainty meats. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee. The morsel which thou hast eaten shalt thou vomit up, and lose thy sweet words. Speak not in the ears of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of thy words. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. For their Redeemer is mighty, he shall plead their cause with thee. Apply thine heart unto instruction, and thine ears to the words of knowledge. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Two meanings to that, actually. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. I spelled it out. My son, if thine heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice, even mine. Yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things. Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and gird thine... guide. One moment. Thank you. Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thine heart in the way. Be not among winebibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh, for the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. Buy the truth, and sell it not. Also wisdom, and instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. She also lieth in wait as for a prey, and increaseth the transgressors among men. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his colour in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, shalt thou say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again. I think there's a little bit missing there in the King James, actually, in that last verse. Hey, where's chapter 24, Paul? It doesn't end there. I'll get it later. I know that's definitely not, that is the end of chapter 23, so I'm not going to sweat that. Besides, we're not done. And we're going to be in 23 here for a day or two, maybe 3, and there's a long one. There's a lot here. All right, when you sit and eat with a ruler, consider diligent what is before thee. These are 3-line proverb of sorts. Some of these are more or less, they're not quite the typical proverb. They're a little more like chunks of advice, but given in a similar kind of, there's like a this, that thing. And if I was a more scholarly man, I could give word to what that is. And I want to keep mentioning that I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to look at that E.W. Billinger Companion Bible structure again, and we will before the end of the study, I'm sure. In fact, actually, at some point, it would make more sense, like as an overview or whatever. But I haven't been out in my office to. Well, I've been there to feed the cats, so I should probably grab my Bible when I feed the cat. Yeah, but I haven't been out there for any other purpose. And if I was there for another purpose, I would probably remember, because the other thing I do there is play my guitar and stuff. So, but I haven't been able to play my guitar. I've been very busy. So, also, like I said, I started recording a new for the Reading the Bible channel. I started recording a new book. I'm doing Romans. It's because I wanted to do some New Testament stuff for the reading channel. I plan on doing a lot of the books I haven't done yet as far as studying, though, just reading them. Especially things like that I may never get to, like Numbers, things like that. Or Leviticus for sure, right? Something like that. Not necessarily for sure. Actually, a reading would be a good place for me to mark out what I want to, if I would cover it, maybe I could structure it. Let's get to the text. All right, when you sit to with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. The thing that immediately comes to mind was Daniel and the 3 Hebrew children, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I forgot their original names. And how they, sorry, my hands are a little stiff. How they were offered to eat all this rich food that they were eating, right? In the king of Babylon's court, for all the, because they would take the best of the upper class, and here, I've had people remark that in some societies, like in feudal societies, I don't remember if it was Japan, but like the upper classes would be like much taller than the lower classes from generations of eating better food sometimes, better quality. But they were starving the people. And starvation diet isn't exactly, you need to eat. But there are, we go, when we overdo the eating, especially things that are prepared foods that are not natural foods, like meat and vegetables, and what else? I guess, grains would be separate, and fruits and all that. Sure. But the farther you get away from something as it grew, and especially when you're talking about processed things now in the modern time, when I think about the king's meats, I think about, like, what else do we get to eat? Who makes their own food? We all, we all sort of eat at the same, not the exact same table, especially when it comes to things like meats, right? But when it comes to a lot of this processed stuff, it's like there's national brands, and then there's knockoffs of the national brands, which are also national. It's like they're buying the Walmart brand, is that different than buying Kellogg's? What I'm saying, it's not like it's like locally, I was going to say it's not like it's locally sourced, but I live in the middle of an agricultural area, so it's like, a lot of things locally sourced here. But anyways, and I'm not sure if put a knife to your throat if you be a man given appetite. And I think that, I don't know, it's like he's saying also, you're making, when you eat, I don't know, like, is he saying the king might be offended at your gluttony? Some kings would prefer gluttons and fat men, satisfied men. They don't want to be surrounded with lean, hungry men, or if they're cowardly, I guess. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's saying like, well, it says there deceitful meat. So to me, it sounds like the meat itself is treacherous in some way. But if you give yourself to this, and here's what I would say. Those that love luxury, that love the better things in life, that is a treacherous path. And also the things that the powerful have to offer. It kind of, men are often led astray by their lusts of various kinds. I mean, what's one of the things I complain about that when Christians talk about heaven in terms of like some sort of, just because there's a marriage supper of the Lamb, they were like, oh, it's food. You can eat all the food you want. It's not sex, but you do get to eat all the food. Hey, it's like, stop it. That's really not the way it is. And God, and there's a certain sense of like, if you perspective this from the perspective of the Lord, how you behave at his banquets, when you eat his dainties. You like, you ever been to an all-you-can-eat buffet? And, you ever, like, I remember one place, it was a Chinese place, and they had a little sign up saying, please take only as much as you can eat. Because if I ran such a place and I saw someone just loading up their plate and just eating a little bit of everything and throwing out the rest and being like very, like, oh, I want, with eyes bigger than their stomach and wasteful and all that, a good king is going to look at that and see someone who's unworthy. And being a man given to appetite. And you're sort of like, you might as well put a knife to your own throat. You're betraying yourself. You're showing your cards, who you are. And sometimes, and maybe putting all this before people is a sort of a method of revealing what's going on. But also, it is a form of, oh, you like the better things. A corrupt king uses these gifts and such to corrupt counsel, and as far as to get people. Well, you look at the way politicians are desirous always of money. They're all money grubbing. I need it for the campaign so I can get reelected and get more money to get more campaigns and so I can keep doing this. But obviously campaign is not the only thing. Certainly not, because a lot of them don't seem to, there was a study showing that there's basically no relation to what they do legislatively and what they campaign on. There's like no relation, except perhaps, I bet Donald Trump he did more things he campaigned on than most I certainly know in my entire lifetime, I've watched and voted in every election I was capable of voting in. And now at this point, I almost feel like I don't want to vote because there's no one I want to vote for, which is unfortunate. Because I like to have someone I want to vote for, I can vote for Trump or for whatever reason. I don't want to talk about that right now. Well, we're talking about a king and stuff and all that. So, the things, it makes me think of the corrupting influence of the fact that the government has the power to extract all the wealth of the nation and put out this table of dainties also. And all the people come to eat of it. Like the people trying to get money from the government, lobbying the government. I just think of all that corrupt stuff that goes on. Like, they just had all these. I'm sure they just had all these, government Christmas parties, and now they have morale parties, and they put on banquets for themselves, and they, spend extravagantly just on, government parties for government workers and all that stuff. And it's like, they're all eating at that table and stuffing themselves. There's an image of that. I mean, as far as like in the mind, it evokes a kind of imagery of a corrupting thing. I don't know, because these are deceitful meat. The Lord puts no deceitful meat on his table, truly. But even so, even good meat, one can behave at table quite inappropriately. And the thing is, the idea that is definitely a metaphor. Just like having on the wedding garment, when Jesus talked about in the parable, the man not having on the wedding garment got cast out of the wedding. Because he did not respect the fact. He was disrespectful. You're at a wedding. Put on the wedding garment. He had not a wedding garment on. It's absurd. It's like, or somebody sitting at the table just taking fistful of good food even, and just stuffing their face. In a rude way. Of course, that's not, like I said, this is not the idealized king. A lot of times we have this idealized ruler, right? Notice it doesn't say necessarily the king. Does it say? No, it does not say the king. It's a ruler. The powerful. And also, now that's another thing I just thought. It's the king speaking to his son. Right? Because this is and so there's sort of a kingly advice. Well, in all these things, I consider kingly advice because, it is not for kings to drink wine, and we are kings and priests with Christ. So we have to have a sort of the kingly mindset. That's why these Proverbs are also very useful for us. Because to be, Christ is King of kings and Lord of lords, and we are supposed to sit down with him in his throne. So there's some aspect in which we have to be familiar with the how it is one ought to rule, what good rulership looks like. And in fact, that is what our founders thought of as the responsibility of of the people of a nation, to make sure that the government established upholds the things that ought to uphold the rights of the people, and keeps peace. Right now, I'm not sure what our government thinks its purpose is. There's another part to our government. Like, we have our government at home, but then we also have our state abroad. And it's like this paranoid empire, apparently. And it's really just a problem. We have to, key this, but I do think we're safe in the homeland to some degree. Not entirely. And especially when we're letting millions of strangers cross our border, and our government wants to put them into the military and the police for some reason. Whatever. I think that'll all turn on you, actually, because you think you can take these people. It's like, I think a lot of them are as disgusted with what the people in charge have been doing. I don't necessarily think they're going to jump in your camp or be thankful for you, not necessarily. Whatever. I'm not certainly frightened of them or of the evil rulers. But as a king, you have to understand. That's why I understand. It's like, I am a servant of the king. And I know that ultimately my reward is to sit with him in his throne and to reign with him, as it is for all of you. Right? We reign together with him. We are the rulers. And in a sense, it talks about us being ambassadors for Christ in this world. And so then I think about it as a Christian, the perspective of a ruler of this world. The rulers of the darkness of this world. Oh, yeah, that puts a different kind of twist on it, right? So then you consider, what is before you? Sit as to eat with a ruler. And to me, it's a ruler of darkness, right? Because there's no other way. There's an adversarial ruler. Yeah, and also consider if it's king and king or whatever. You're meeting with an envoy, you're going to meet with a duke of another nation, or some sort of diplomatic thing. And and also in all that, what you eat, there can be treachery, of course. But I was thinking in the literal sense, but spiritually also. In a sense, eating, we do not per se. At some one point, Paul says, "With such a man, no, you shouldn't eat." Now, that was a man called a brother. When a man called a brother be a fornicator, basically living in sin in defiance, with no repentance, not turning and saying, I know I need to straighten this out. That's all I need to hear. All I need to hear is your acquiescence to the truth. And that I know you're still my brother. Because a brother, if overtaking a fault, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. And how often are you going to forgive him? Well, quite frequently. I'm going to default to that. How often would you like to be forgiven for your little sins? Thou that doest the same things and judgest others. When Paul said that, he was sort of grouping all sin together, if you think about it. But we know the judgment of God is true. Can you tell I've been reading Romans? All right. So Jesus, was repeated that he would dine with sinners. So sometimes you do go to parlay or talk with the enemy. I mean, how else are you going to preach the gospel? Because in some way, every person who isn't a Christian is a enemy of God, as we were, right? We were enemies of God, estranged from him. They may not realize this, but that's what they are. And I think that's what people think. They're like, listen to common people who are like, what, God's doing a great job of taking care of everybody. It's like, that's not what God's job is. He's already condemned the world. We don't understand. We can't comprehend that it's just his mercy that destroys us not. This all just be this doesn't need to be anymore. This is all, but it's not a failed experiment. It's bringing up from the dregs. God's got a project. He's like, I'm going to redeem us sinners. I'm not just going to make perfect people, make a perfect world. That's easy. I'm going to take imperfect things and I'm going to bring them right up. I'm going to do that. Yeah, the Lord's meat is not deceitful. But you definitely got to be careful. Think about when Jesus was tempted of the devil. There was like this interplay. If any man, I'm trying to think about when Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear and open the door, I will come unto him and sup with him and he with me. We will have this dining experience, right? Now, I'm not saying you want to be like, there are occasions, like I said, where Jesus was invited to eat at the house of a Pharisee. Now, of course, he would be very careful about the way he conducted himself at that meal. And not eat sparingly in the house of the enemy, okay? Be not given to appetite in the house of your enemy. What he puts before you, you should be very careful about how you consume it. And I mean also in the spirit, in the sense of words, information, things they want to get you to believe. Watch out what you consume when it's the enemy that provides it. When it's a ruler of dubious, a ruler who is not, who is not of your kingdom. That's why I look at it. Or a ruler who is not who is under you even as a king. Labor not to be rich, cease from thine own wisdom. Nice little combination. There's a weird, it's like interesting. Labor not to be rich, cease from thine own wisdom. Now that does not mean labor not to eat, or labor not to, or don't seek to prosper in your labor. I want my labor to be prosperous in the meaning I want my time to be used for the most productive, as productive it can be. I want to maximize my productivity without whatever, and keeping all priorities in their proper place. Remembering to God, that my labor is not to be rich. Right? What is our labor in the Lord? Happy are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness. Happy are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God, is it not? Yeah. When we labor in the gospel, we labor that we may enter into his rest. That's another thing. That's the thing. Like, labor to enter into his rest. It's like the perfect opposite thing. But not to be consumed with the affairs of this life. And that is the essence of what the Sabbath is. It is to cease from your own labors and to just rest in the fact that the world is made. As God rested the seventh day from his creation, we rest from our labor, and because God has ordained it. Now, according to the gospel, according to the New Testament, One man honoreth one day above another. One man honoreth every day alike. The Jewish Sabbath, some people become quite legalistic about it. As far as that, it's got to be every Saturday. And some people, Christians, it's got to be Sunday. But I, explicitly in the book of Colossians, it says, let no man judge you in regard to a holy day or the Sabbath days. Oh, it's only certain Sabbath days. No. You are missing the point on Christian liberty. If any part of the law is still in effect like that, because it has to do, then why didn't they bring it up when the Gentiles, when they said, what do the Gentiles have to do? Okay, well, no blood drinking, fornicating, or eating things sacrificed to idols. They did not mention the Sabbath. In fact, they could have. That was a great opportunity. Circumcision was on the table. Nope, none of that stuff. That's why when I released my video, One Ball Man, I quote the verse, Deuteronomy 23:1. No man that is wounded in the stones or hath his privy member cut off shall enter into the congregation of the Lord. I'm technically excluded from God's kingdom by the words of Deuteronomy. Well, no, Paul. No, not one jot or tittle passes away until it's all fulfilled. If Christ didn't fulfill all of it, then you're a debtor to do all of it. That's what the teaching is. Some people just don't get that. So we labor to enter into his rest. It's more than just sitting around doing nothing in a rote exterior way. That's why I don't consider that my Sabbath. My rest is Christ. He is my rest. He is what I enter into every day to cease from my own labor and to rest in the fact that he is God. He is ascended. He is on the throne. All is well. It is good. You know? And I need that every day. Now, you know, and why was it one out of seven? It's like, I think that a lot of times, whatever, in the New Testament, we are clearly given liberty because the Gentiles did not have that custom. And so, yeah, and then Gentiles started having church on Sunday in honor of Christ's resurrection, and they started considering that the Sabbath, even though it's not, yes. But will it do for a Sabbath? Absolutely. Well, you can't, it's got to be... It's like, how do you even know Saturday is the original Saturday? How do you know? Oh, well, we know. Okay, sorry. We know. The Jews wouldn't have possibly lost track of that. I'm not saying they did. I'm suggesting they did, but I'm not suggesting. I'm kidding. I'm not suggesting it because there's no evidence for that. So, but there's no evidence. The evidence otherwise, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how you track the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially when you consider it's different from different societies. But I assume they're still following it, and they think the Saturday is the Saturday as it's always been. I suppose our calendar still lines up with... That's interesting that our calendars still line up. I mean, they're still counting years in a very different way than we are. But as far as the days of the week, the rotation is still the same. Anyways, there's different ways we labor in Christ. In important ways, we ought to labor. And in fact, that is the essence of the Sabbath, is because it's to recognize another kind of labor. It's like the outward manifestation of things is one thing, but there is also the inner life where you're not doing anything, but you're being, and you can being and also interacting with other people and interacting with God. You know, ceasing from labor. Not to be busy about all those things, not to be always overconsumed with the affairs of this life, though they are important to some degree. Our own wisdom says, no, I got to do it all the time. I got to work every day. If I can't take a day off, are you kidding me? I can't take a moment to pray. I'm too busy. I don't have the time. I can't do a Bible study an hour a day. You know, some days it ends up getting messed up. That's all right. I don't have like some sort of contract that keeps me here or something like that. Just like the time. My life isn't conducive to that precision right now. And so like what? Is then therefore the grace of rest unavailable to me? It's like, well, no, I spread it out. I take my Sabbath every time I can. I probably take more Sabbath in the course of the week than people do on any given day, any given Sunday or Saturday, whichever one drives your boat. Cease from thine own wisdom. That's again. There's a thing. Is like we have our own wisdom that says one thing, like I said, and that's the thing. Is it's not always easy to tell when we have when something is just our own wisdom until we've encountered maybe wisdom in God's word that contradicts us. And that's true because, that's what I do sometimes when I look at a scripture and I say that doesn't seem right. But the point is, I don't want to hide that from you. To me, it's like, no, I'm just exposing the truth of man and the word and all that. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I might be wrong. My understanding might be wrong. I know God isn't wrong. Sometimes the translation's wrong. There's all kinds of things that can go slip up in the communication. But the Spirit clarifies it all, I think. And that's what we got to look for is the Word and the Spirit will out our wisdom. When we are going by our own wisdom, the Word will eventually, if you are in the Word and exploring the Word, you will find that bit and your conscience will be convicted. You realize, oh, that's not, I've been thinking in a different way. My wisdom. Your ways are not my ways. Your thoughts are not my thoughts. We have to be very careful. But the truth is, the Spirit of God in us also reveals to us God's thoughts. And you can tell they're God's thoughts because they are pretty much, they're just like in the Word of God. They don't deviate from the righteous, from the righteousness of God. And that's why we wrestle with some things, because we know the righteousness of God is as it is. That's why, when Jesus talked about divorce, saying, well, God made them male and female and intended that they not be divided. But this was suffered to be for the hardness of men's hearts. So there's divorce in the law, and there's slavery in the law, because there's the hardness of men's hearts. But you also look at that and you say, well, that's God's fault. It's like, God's raising up sons in the midst of evil. We don't like the plan. It's like, the thing I trust is that, like I said, to us, there's no cosmic justice that man can bring to the world, and man should not trouble himself to do so. We can only follow God's wisdom and orient ourselves to the righteous standards of God, and then in doing that, in performing all the things, and at least, or making the good faith effort at it, without actually, because we're not going to, but you got to try. If you don't, if you don't aim for something, if I don't aim and pull the trigger, how am I going to hit the target? If I don't actually do that, I could just if I just sit around and let it collect dust, well, I'll never hit anything. If I go out blindfolded and someone spins me in a circle and I just fire randomly, that ain't going to work either. We have to, there's a clear standard. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings, they fly away as an eagle toward heaven. Yep, because ultimately we cannot hold on to them. Not just that, you can hold on to them all your life and then you die and then it's gone. All that's gone. And what was the point of that? I mean, people have these things, he that dies with the most toys wins. I'd be like, he that breaks the most toys wins. What are you talking about? Dies with the most toys. Get out of here. I'm like, I want them to be all used up. As far as the competition over toys goes, whatever. I think that's a joke, of course, because, and it's also a commentary on the futility of that, I think, in some ways. I mean, it's like, I think that is very often tongue-in-cheek, because people are like, why are you getting all these toys? Well, a lot of times they don't know what to do with their money. They don't have any godly path they're following. They're trying to get rich, and then they get rich, and they're like, okay, now I'm rich, what do I do with it? And especially once they get all their income settled, and they're like, well, I got all this for spending money or whatever. I don't know. I've never been rich. I don't know what it's like. I mean, I feel rich enough in the things that I got, the things that I got that maybe are not money and the riches that perish not, I feel very well, provided for. So again, when you long after the rich, these things, people say, well, but in the meantime, they make you feel real good. It's like, not really. It's like the Beatles said, money can't buy you love. There's a lot of things. Well, it could buy you sex. Yeah, well, ultimately, a lot of people have found that path, and they have not found that to be the path of fulfillment. They just don't. And whatever. It's like if that does please you, if that is the path you want, well, go seek it. You have your reward. What complaint would you make of God? And they go, well, I wanted it more. And it's like, it's not his responsibility to cater to your lust. You found at least enough of what you wanted. Take it and go. And it's not just money. It's all the lust of evil things. It's all fleeting. The word of the Lord endures forever. And the soul of the man that shall find Christ and partake of the resurrection, he will be brought to eternal life with God and have access to the understanding of all those things, all those what is the nature? Well, whatever, it doesn't. Show me what you will. Like I said, if I could just simply be able to contemplate, to understand, to know God as we are known, that's mind-blowing. I suppose in that sense, we enter into his consciousness, being also conscious, of ourselves and of him. That's what it sounds like to me always. Anyway, to be like conscious with him, which is something I don't think we have any experience with. Imagine being sort of at the same time, God knows your mind, but you don't know his until he reveals it to you. Imagine if he was fully revealing himself to you. So I have trouble imagining that. Like the way you're fully revealed to yourself, at least moment to moment, except more clearly. And, I don't know. I'm just saying, when I think of the things it speaks of, people think about heaven as like, eating pastries. I'm like, I'm thinking of it as the fulfillment of what that sort of eating the body and blood of Christ symbolizes. It's like there's an actual culmination of that whereby we become his children through adoption. Eat thou not the bread of him that hath an evil eye. What is an evil eye? I believe it means it literally means in Hebrew, I believe, just evil eye. I don't think there's some... I'm just going to quickly look at it here. Eat thou not the bread of him that hath an evil. It's not the usual. Is that ra? Wait a second. My eyes. Yeah, ayin, eye, and... Oh, yeah, that's right. It's evil eye. It's literally translated exactly. It's the normal word for evil. Neither desire his dainty meats. Somewhat is the idea of an evil eye. People talk about the evil eye as a sort of a kind of a mystical or like people able to put curses on people and stuff, superstitions like that. And I whatever you think about that, I don't think that that's really the essence of what this is talking about, but it's similar. What it means is someone who intends evil towards someone. They look at you with the intent of calamity, like where there is not, and also maybe not you, but you see that is the kind of person they are. They have an evil eye. They're constantly seeing evil to perform, is the way I would kind of look at it. For as he thinks in his heart, because the light of the body is the eye, and Jesus there says, and if thy eye be evil, right, or and if thy eye be single, what does that mean? Well, we know that this is true, that there's something about people's eyes that actually reveals what's going on inside. The eyes can be, people can work at deceiving with their eyes, but it's very difficult, really. You can usually look at someone like who's lying hard And it's just pouring off them like sweat. You know? People don't lie very good. And some people lie, or even when they do, it's like there are a lot of other, like people may lie with a straight face, but that's still an evil lie, because there's not the sense, like a straight face is not the same as a sincere one. But the light of because I remember people would say, like, not people, I heard someone say at one point that, like, oh, they used to think light comes out of the body to light the world. How absurd. No, it's a metaphor. The eye is the light, meaning it reveals what is inside somewhat. It's like shines out a bit. Why do you think people who play cards wear those sunglasses? They want to shade their eyes. Because you can tell a lot by someone, especially when they're not guarded. Yeah, of course, the exception kind of proves the rule, that it takes a lot of work to conceal what's going on inside through eye control. It takes a lot of concentration, especially if you're being dishonest, especially if there's a disconnect with what your mouth is speaking and what your heart knows. But the heart is the thing that really goes on, and that's what when you see something messed up in someone's eyes, where there's a disconnect to what their eye says and what their mouth says. Sometimes it's not even evil. It's like you see someone smiling with their mouth and their eyes are not, or someone trying to keep a straight face with their mouth, but their eyes look like they're like about to laugh. Right? So there's a lot of ways the eyes betray you. And when someone has an obviously evil eye, watch out, I think that may be why a lot of people, when I was young, I didn't make many friends. And probably because, like I said, I had a fierce countenance. That's for a child, whatever. And some would say even now, but, like I said, I try to modulate by not wearing, being all the time, which is not necessarily evil, a sullen expression, but people can sometimes have trouble interpreting things if you're not also speaking. So, don't always judge a book by its cover. Someone's face, they may be having a bad day. It doesn't mean they have an evil eye. Like I said, I look at that evil eye where if someone has bad intentions and it's manifesting itself because he's thinking something in his heart, but he says something, but his heart is not with you. He's deceitful. Eat and drink, he says. Hey, whatever I'm pushing, you buy it. Not just that's a metaphor. Eat and drink. Relax. Right? Eat and drink, be merry. Tomorrow, it means don't hey, life goes on. Have something to eat. Don't, a lot of times when I've had some pretty harrowing circumstances in my life where my appetite was just destroyed. Couldn't eat. You couldn't pay me to eat. So I get it. In eating and drinking is normal life. Back to normal. Let's eat and drink. They were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered in the ark. Right? It was just business as usual. He says, "Oh, business as usual," but inside something else going on. I can't do it. I can't do two things. I'm trying to make some sort of duplicitous face. I'm like, nah, I don't know. I'm not particularly good. I have to actually be in a duplicitous mood to look like that. I don't have it. I don't intend. I'm more in danger of being a wrathful man. No, I'm not a wrathful man, but as far as that's more of a temptation to me. It's definitely not something I would say characterizes me. I'm not a wrathful man. I'm a man of peace. I love peace. I'm very slow to anger. I think that's why at times people have been shocked, because I'm usually such a happy-go-lucky person. Not exactly. But I try to exude that. I tell you what, I couldn't if I didn't have actual joy in me. If I can't, it's not just a mask. You know what I mean? I try to remember to let the light shine. Not without sounding a trumpet before me, but to have people think, some reason to think, there's a person with joy in his soul. Yeah, you're right. I don't have a resting jerk face, which I think is what I had in my youth. I had resting jerk face. Just didn't look like a nice person. So, evil eye, though, I think is a little more serious. There's a lot of things about people's eyes that will betray them, for sure. Watch out for people who are not right in their hearts. The morsel which thou hast eaten shalt thou vomit up, and lose thy sweet words. What does that mean? You have sweet words? Well, I think this idea of someone who is... You're eating the bread of someone who has an evil eye, and you desire what they have. They have something to offer. Before I was talking about eating with rulers, and it could be also a similar thing, like it would still apply. Anyone with an evil eye, ruler or otherwise, but they have some sort of power because they offer something dainty. They're able to feed. They're able to offer information, whatever. Something you want. And but you can tell they have sometimes, but like it seems too good to be true. Like there's got to be an ulterior motive. Yeah, I remember one time I was in a parking lot, and this is where my normal sort of innocency bias sort of always comes to the rescue. Like these two young ladies approached me, and she's like, "Hi, she gave me this weird pitch where she said, da 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 da, would you back me up?" And I was like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Say that again." And I heard it. I'm like, it sounded basically like she wanted me to give a false testimony that, yeah, I tried this and it's great, because she needed help with and I guess they're trying to take advantage of the fact that I was a man and I might be wanting to help girls because maybe I'd see there was something in it for me. But of course, I was just like, no. I should have called the cops. Really, I was just like, no, and if you don't leave the parking lot, I'm going to call the police. That probably would have been the better thing to do. I was just like, no. And she's like, worth a shot. And then she's walked off. I don't know. When I came out of the store, they were gone. So hopefully they got nervous, because I did not look at all pleased with what they were doing. But anyways, they were, and why did I say no? Because there was they were saying, there was also some sort of offer. Like she was going to give me, I couldn't quite make it out. Like I said, she was talking fast. I could tell. There was just like some sort of adventure to go on or whatever. I don't know. Sometimes help me out. Get involved with this thing that's not. It seems like not good. A good thing. Watch out for people who don't seem right. Sometimes people seem sketchy, and and it's not wrong to go with your instinct. Pray to the Lord. Ask His forgiveness if you were wrong. Right? Someone was asking about that the other day. Someone come to their door and they didn't feel it quite right. Now, mostly those people, this is the case for people, you're going to have someone coming to you. I've been thinking about, have you watched the president talk, what his eyes look like? I've never seen a man with more evil looking eyes as this old man now. He used to conceal it well or something, or I don't know if it's the things they're injecting in his face to keep it from falling off that cause him to look so strange and lizard-like. I'm like, it's really bizarre. I mean, I've never seen a person who, I thought their eyes looked more evil right now than our own dear leader. I'm thanking God that I'm not a 501c3 charity. There's no charity here. I didn't even collect money for this, right? That's cool. Worst thing they can do is shut it off, and then I'll just go somewhere else, There's lots of places. You can always check out oraclesofgod.org. That'll get updated. I'm working on it. I got computer issues and stuff, but it's going to have an update. And if anything ever happened to me, like I kicked off YouTube, you can be sure to find me on my website, oraclesofgod.org, that domain. And you can find out where I've gone next. And I'm certainly not doing anything that would be worthy of being kicked off as far as I'm concerned. You're allowed to make fun of people, especially the president of the United States. Like, he's not a king. They'd like him to be a king or something. I don't know why. Morsel which thou hast eaten shalt thou vomit up and lose thy sweet words. So we said, yeah, and I think that since you desire his dainty meat, like, oh, yeah, thanks. Oh, yeah. Like you entertain this person with the evil eye, and you're thankful and gracious because you're like, Oh, I got my dainty meats. I'm so excited and happy. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're such a great person. And then that which he gave you, and and what you said, you're gonna, like those words are gonna fly away too. They don't mean anything. I think that's what that means. Let's look at the NIV, because it's like that's kind of a weird translation, is it not? So, I mean, if you're King James only, that's a perfect translation. But I'm not King James only. I'm just King James preferred. As some folks say, I don't really have that sort of. I don't usually say that, right? I don't say anything. I don't like branding at all for the gospel. I don't want any string geniites. Those we don't need to do that. But whatever. I don't care if that happens, whatever. I'll be humble enough to accept that. I mean, in the sense of like the embarrassment. All right. Because in the sense of like, my name is silly sounding. Come on. Right? Cool, but silly, right? All right. So we need, I got the wrong screen up over here. I'm like looking for Proverbs in the NIV. Here we go. Yep. So nothing to change there. Nothing to change there. They're pretty much in agreement. Do not eat the food of a begrudging host. Well, I get it. Evil eye. Do not crave his delicacies. For he is the kind of person who is always thinking about the cost. Wait a second. What? Oh, so his heart is not with thee? Really? Or, look at here. You can't see this. See this little. If you hover here, it doesn't translate through OBS Studio, which is what I use to create these live streams. But there's a little thing here, and this is a notation in the NIV. It'd be at the bottom, and it says, "Or, for as he thinks within himself, so he is. Or for as he puts on a feast, so he is." As he thinks within himself, so he is. His heart is not with you. Well, that's the point. Is like that. Well, that's why I said there's a disconnect between what's inside and what's outside. I don't like this. This is way too specific. I think they went way too far in interpreting, and that's why I do not use the NIV as a base text. If you're studying the Bible, you should not use the NIV as your base text. It's a cool one to refer to if you want to see what modern translators think an interpretation is, and it will give you a different look at it, almost like a paraphrase. But not quite that bad, because it is different. You know, an interpretation is different than a translation. There's an interpretation, a translation, and a paraphrase. Like, for example, I paraphrase a lot of verses by when I quote them. I don't quote them perfectly. And that's perfectly acceptable if it's basically the right idea. You know, you have to quote John 3:16 verbatim from the King James for it to be true. And many verses are like that. That's what the beautiful thing is. Like, that's why I say I don't bother memorizing verses. I know the truth. And being able to just speak that on and put it into your own words, into words that are easy for people living now to understand, instead of saying to people like, hey, well, John 3:16. Hey, well, Romans 9:10. Hey, I mean, Romans 10:9, huh? Romans 10:9. 1 Corinthians 9, 10, and 11. Look it up. Look it up. What's it say? Or even if you can recite it right out of the King James, that's not it. It's clunky. People that impresses other believers. That's the kind of thing you go to church and people are like, oh, Paul, you're such a knowledgeable Christian. You can quote so many verses. That's how I used to be. I used to have like, oh, this verse, that verse. But if you don't maintain that, you gotta, it's a show you gotta keep prepping for. Like a lot of guys on TV, that's what they have prepared scripts. This is not a prepared Bible study. It's impromptu. It's the whole nature of this channel. I'm surprised and delighted at how many people like to come around and listen to it. That's nice. Must be entertaining when you're doing your dishes or whatever, like my wife does, or whatever. I listen to people talk on podcasts and stuff. I absolutely. It's a great innovation. It's much better. It's like the radio, but you could watch it, and also there's so many things to choose from. I'm glad people choose to spend any time listening to this. that makes me feel like it's actually worthwhile. Well, I already have. It's already worthwhile because I have a permanent student, but that others do also. That means we're not just insane. All right. His heart is not with you. He will vomit up the little you've eaten. The new NIV. Okay. Yeah, the rest. Again, they kind of lose that spiritual. They lose the idea that it's any kind of metaphor when they do this, because he's only thinking about the car. They make it utterly mundane. Yes, that, and I'm not saying they're wrong, because that is one way in which someone with an evil, like they're sitting, and I get it. I tell you, I've been tempted to be a begrudging host. We should be fond of guests, but the temptation takes me, because sometimes I don't like the person so much who's my guest, and I want to welcome them. I want to give them of my meat with happiness, to give them of my meat, not with, I'm poor and I hope you don't waste any of that, or I can't afford to feed you, but I'm feeding you. I don't want to think like that, but, or whatever, especially if it's someone who's like kind of imposing and, especially because my wife here's the thing. My wife is an exceeding gracious hostess. And so at times that pressures me, because she'll go overboard for my money. Whereas I will be gracious to a point. I'm a pretty gracious person, but she's way more gracious than me, man. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, hold on, Katie, that's a bit much for me there. Oh, you're pushing me into the realm of now my eyes are turning dark. And I'm like, maybe not so much for this one. Maybe not. Maybe we knew, and, I admire her for that. And it's just, like I said, I don't mind confessing my own dark side. I would rather glory in my infirmities, in the sense of like, what does glory mean? What does that mean, glory in my infirmities? Well, I'm talking about them and making a big deal about my infirmities. I'm not being like, look at all the works I done. Oh, did you see what I did over the weekend and all that stuff? No, I'm talking about, like I said, how I failed to be perfect, or I feel like someone outshined me in something that I don't think of myself as deficient in. I don't think of myself as someone with an evil eye, per se. I said per se. Have I ever been ill-intentioned towards people? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And they would not be wise to come and eat my meat. And the thing is, here's one thing. I don't lay snares for my enemies like that. If I don't like someone and I regard them as my enemies, I want to bless them. I do not want to. If they're hungry, I will feed them, but not with deceitful meat. No, I don't do that. That's wrong. As a Christian, you must bury that resentment and trust in the righteous vengeance of God, or of his forgiveness also for them, as you were forgiven. And we ought to love our enemies that far. Christ died for us. We whose sins for whom he was crucified. Each one of us. There's no one who isn't guilty of his death in some way or the other. People's like, oh, the Jews crucified him, the Romans crucified him. It's like, everybody has a role. Everybody has their part. Don't worry, you too are guilty of the blood of Christ. Don't think so? Well, you'll be convicted. Don't worry. All right, I've gone an hour on 6 verses? Okay, well, we can go a little longer. Today I've got no pressure right now to stop, so I'm going to keep going a little more. Let's see. Vomit up and lose thy sweet words. Whatever that means. Whatever it was you were, like I said, when you eat with somebody, often, oh, thank you, host, and like, oh wow, hey, you're being nice to me, isn't this great? And then it's all of a sudden you realize there's some hidden agenda, something that buried, whatever. It doesn't exactly say, right? It just lets you know treachery is afoot. When they don't match up, don't trust them. Speak not in the ears of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of thy words. Cast not your pearls before swine. Jesus said so. But judge not, that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you judge. I don't want to assume. Here's the thing. Don't just assume people are fools. Confirm it before you know it. It's like, be careful. Don't be so judgmental. That you jump to conclusions about people. But if someone has proven themselves unworthy or just whatever, they don't take counsel. I agree. I know there've been times, look at it, like there'll be kids try to tell, not my own kids, but you try to tell them stuff, because I coach and stuff. And I realize that at least, hey, this year, you know what? Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. Children are good examples of fools. Because, like, I'll literally be talking to a kid. I can tell, this kid ain't listening. He ain't listening. And because, you know why? Because whatever I'm saying, he wants to do something else. He despises the wisdom of my words. You tell your children a lot of things and they don't do them. Because they despise the wisdom of your words. I'm telling you, like my little granddaughter, she's sweet. I love her. But she's got a sinful streak just like everybody. Selfish and just, you can't tell them no without them getting angry. And it's normal, but it's also indicative of human nature. Speaking on the ears of a fool, he will despise the wisdom of their words. Children are often like that. That's why it often involves things like physical punishment. When they're a little child, there's no point. They can't. An infant who does not understand should never be punished like that, because, like with any kind of blow or anything, I'm always like mostly no, and just kind of hold their hands, restrain them physically, just gently, is the way to go. When they throw their tantrum, I just kind of give them just physically gently restrain them, and I'm not sympathetic to their screaming, and I sort of make noises that indicate my disapproval. Because they're not despising the wisdom of your words. They don't understand. They don't understand. You can communicate to them through nonverbal cues, but none of them should be striking, since they won't really understand what's going on. It has to be direct defiance of understood things, and also they need to be physically able to sustain a slap to the butt, which is not, again, you got to tailor you have to think of the punishment as something for them, not for you. Not to satisfy your anger, not to satisfy anything to do with you, except you feel it is your obligation to them so that they don't die, as it says coming up, right? If you beat him with the rod, he shall not die. Not meaning that, you're not going to kill him. No, you're saving his soul from hell, from the grave, that Sheol. Not Gehenna, and we'll talk more about that probably tomorrow, because we're not going to go all the way there with the detailed analysis. We were on verse 9. We'll go on a bit. So, fools. So children can exemplify fools as they get to be a certain age, because they have that mischievous thing where they'll be told not to do things and they'll go and do them. And that's truly, they despise the wisdom of the words. And since they're your children, you don't want them to be fools. Make them wise. Correct them. The thing when you're talking about an adult, like they say, there's no fool like an old fool. If someone's still a fool and they've been told and they've been living and they insist on going on in their foolish ways, I'm saying there is often no point in talking about it to them when they will not. This is not necessarily an injunction; it's just a fact of life. You can tell a fool. It's almost like you can tell a fool, because if you speak wisdom of words to them, they despise them. And they don't, and there's no point in speaking in their ears. So again, we have this removing out the old landmark, enter not in the field of the fatherless. Fools despise this kind of advice, right? As far as, certainly not the first part. They're connected somewhat, right? Remove not the old landmark. I look at that as symbolic of tradition, also of law, obviously, because it's like, but also there's the idea of boundaries. We have moral boundaries, things that we find acceptable or unacceptable in society. When you try to change the old boundaries and what's allowable and what's not allowable, especially when you're talking about critical things, never remove a fence that you don't know why it was there. Why was it put there? Why was that boundary marker there? What's it there for? What's it keeping back? What's it keeping in? What's it keeping out? What is it delineating, that marker? Some people know very well, and they move it out of greed to steal land. The old owner dies, right? Well, again, these may or may not be connected, but they can be. What I think is, I would say is they can be connected. Moving the old landmark can be connected to the idea of entering into the fields of the fatherless, meaning you're trying to encroach on their land because the patriarch of the family may have perished, and now without him around, you feel stronger and to able to bully them and to take part of their land, maybe that you disputed after or whatever, something that was a point of contention or whatever. It doesn't even have to be just out of greed. But also entering into the fields of the fatherless to sort of, I think it's also to sort of like steal their produce, what belongs to them. You know, there's a harsh truth in life. It's true in heaven. It's true in earth. It's he that to him that hath shall be given, and he shall have the more abundance. And from him that hath not shall be taken even that which he seemeth to have. It says that in Luke in that particular way. But you know, that's true in both ways, both in this world and spiritually. Jesus was referring to it spiritually as far as like in the kingdom of God. You know, when we have faith, true faith, you know, we're given more and we have abundance of it. You know, and we get, that's just a fact. I go from faith to faith, from one level to another level to a greater level. I go from knowledge to knowledge, from glory to glory, just onward, upward, forevermore, until the day Christ come, and then we will reach perfection. There's still things to do, but I think at least moral perfection. You know what I mean? I don't know that I will be perfect. Like, will I be finished with my existence? Well, not in the sense. I more I want to live. More I want to. I don't know what exactly that is. Like I said, so I want to. Like I said, they shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. That's what I want to do. I want to build houses and plant vineyards. I'll do that forever. That sounds good to me. I mean, and that's a metaphor. You know what I mean? Also, for all kinds of productive activities. What could be more productive than houses and vineyards, you know? Fields and, you know, to make the good things for the things that are good in life that God gives man. So entering into the fields of the fatherless, robbing the fatherless is always frowned upon deeply. The Lord hates it. Their Redeemer is mighty, and he shall plead their cause with thee. We had a similar verse a selection of verses in the last chapter. He pleads their cause. He's going to take their side. You don't want to be, you know, when God is on the other side. I mean, you don't want to find yourself opposing God. Everyone wants to think God is on their side. But you got to be very careful about that. Like I think about the conflict right now. I've had comments from people, you know, they're like, oh, Paul, you know, Hamas this and Israel that. And sin is sin. Right is right and wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter what other people do. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's like, you can say, oh, well, this, that, and right to defend, sure. Indiscriminately bomb. Does anyone, they don't tell you in the news, they bombed churches. An Israeli sniper shot 2 women, a mother and a daughter, at prayer in a Christian church. They're not discriminating. They have shot their own captives who were shirtless, waving white flags, because that's what they do to every Palestinian who attempts to surrender to them. It's barbaric. There's mass graves being poured, and I've seen the videos of the Palestinian graves with the bodies thrown out and the tracks of the Israeli bulldozers. And they say they're looking for their captives. Well, you have a heck of a way of searching for your dead. With a bulldozer? Maybe you should ask for a ceasefire, and then they can sort out the dead. They haven't killed enough. There's not enough blood to slake your thirst, O Israel. How much blood is it? Is there enough blood in Palestine to slake the thirst of Israel to drink it? Verily, I say to you, if they continue to drink the blood of the Palestinians, their own blood is going to be spilled. That's what it's like. Are you kidding? You know, like, I don't have to be, God doesn't have to come down from the sky in a UFO and tell me that, God, for me to know that that's the truth. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's Bible. I don't make it up. That's just what it's like. All you have to do is be in tune with that, and you should see it if you're watching carefully. As if you're just listening to propaganda at one side, just saying this and that, and not looking what they're actually doing, what they're actually saying. What are they actually saying? What are they actually doing? The other side is evil. That's not, the other side being evil has never been an excuse for us to do evil. And I'm not going to excuse it another. Why would that please God? I tell Jesus, I never saw Jesus tell me, oh, choose the way of murder, No, choose peace. So, well, what do you think they should? Yes, that's what they should have done. If they had just, honestly, they could have just negotiated from the beginning. You know what the problem was? The way they responded. Whatever, I don't want to talk about it. I've learned so much more about it, but I want to be certain in all my knowledge. There's a lot of other things I could say. But it's not good what they do. And, because the thing is, notice he doesn't, the fatherless is just a category. The downtrodden. Whoever they may be. God is creator of all. He is also God. He's God of the whole world. And if you look at, like I said, I was just finishing reading the prophet Amos. And I can tell you, God has had a lot to say to Israel. He's not always pleased with what they do. He's not always instructing them to treat others as Amalek. And to presume that. So the Spirit of God told you that they are to be regarded as Amalek. And the Christian churches and hospitals also, and the Christian women in their churches. A lot of people don't even realize, oh yeah, there is a Christian community in Gaza. And I guess they're getting blown up too. Well, that's what happens when you live with terrorists. What kind of barbaric animals do we have living in this country? That's what I want to know. I mean, seriously. That's not a position. That's just I don't know, it's childishness. No, it's ungodly childishness is what it is. It's rah, my team wins. And then, in bloodlust, like you can't believe. You guys want blood? The world is hungry and thirsty for blood. Well, they will have blood. They will have blood. And they will drink it. Okay. I guess that's where we're going, huh? Okay, apply to the words of well, we can make that part of the next one. This one, I'm not sure. This could be a standalone proverb, right? Applying their heart to instruction and your ears to the words of knowledge. That could either follow the last one or precede the next one. But, it's just an exhortation to do the obvious. Don't just, not with lip service. As men pleasers. This is God we're talking about. When you're talking about being instructed in true wisdom, it's something you should actually really apply yourself to. Really open your ears up. It's not just a game. It's not just an intellectual pursuit. It is it's the ultimate reality. It's the Christ is King. And that knowledge and that all that stems from it is very critical. And we must apply ourselves very carefully to that. Because the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And we'll be back tomorrow to continue studying in the book of Proverbs. Here we go.
Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and the gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out